Hello, welcome back to Nicole's Diary. I'm back again with another video, guys, and yeah, as usual, before we go any further, I'll just request you to please like the video, comment, share it, and also subscribe. Please, guys, subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel, and yeah, I'm glad right now for the current subscribers that I have, but yeah, I need you guys to please subscribe so that we can even push this channel much more further. And also don't forget to turn on your notification bells so that every time I upload new content just like this, you'll be the first ones to get it. Yeah, so now aside from that, let's get straight into the video. So today's topic is going to be about the cost of living in Pune. Yeah, so currently I'm in India and I'm living in Pune. This is a state, this is a city in the Maharashtra state, okay? It happens to be the second largest city in Maharashtra state. And Pune is not that far from Mumbai. Mumbai is like the neighboring city to Pune. Mumbai also happens to be large. Actually, I think it's larger than Pune, and it's the financial capital of India. And Pune happens to be more of IT because there are so many IT companies here. Yeah, so today I'm going to basically be talking about the cost of living here. So I've already lived in this city now for almost close to 2 years. I completed 1 year last year, no, earlier this year. So I'm almost close to 2 years now. And I just want to talk about the cost of living and how I find living in Pune is for me. So yeah, so the first point, I'll go with accommodation. So one advantage that I love about living in Pune is that in terms of accommodation, I can say that it's not really that expensive, especially depending on also the area that you're living in, because location as well matters a lot. We have some different places here in Pune that have a higher cost of living. For example, if you go to places like Koregaon Park, Kalyani Nagar, those are some places where you'll find accommodation much more expensive. For example, so we have different types of accommodations. We have RK. RK is basically like just a one single room, and then you might find maybe kitchen and then the toilet separate with it, but it has no living room, no nothing. The living room is the same as the bedroom itself. And then we also have the 1 BHK. 1 BHK is more like a one-bedroomed house. Of course, you'll find one room as well as the living room, the kitchen, and then the so-called toilet and bathroom. And then we have the 2 BHK, which is a two-bedroomed house, 3 BHK, three-bedroomed house, like that. So in places, for example, like if you're going to stay in areas like Magarpata, Koregaon Park, Baner, then there, it depends. Some of those prices might be a bit expensive. You might find 1 BHK sometimes like even up to 10,000, or sometimes 2 BHK you might even find it up to 15 or 20, depending. And if you go to other places like, for example, Sangvi, or even here in Lohigaon, for example, I'm living in Lohigaon, which is not so far from the airport, you may be able to find 1 BHK or RK at between 5 to 8,000, almost similar to Sangvi. And then, so currently, like where I live, I'm staying in a 2 BHK apartment, 2-bedroomed apartment. And with this, I'm paying 12,000 per month, which actually is cheap. Why? Because if I compare to other areas, you will not easily find a 2-bedroomed house at this price. You'll probably find it from 15,000 and above, or even 20,000 and above. However, in terms of accommodation, I think I would say in general, Pune is much more expensive compared to Mumbai, for instance. Because with Mumbai, even if it's a 1 BHK apartment, you might easily find it at 20,000 cheapest. So you can see that the range is quite large there. So yeah, in terms of accommodation, I can say that Pune is not really that expensive, although it just depends on the area that you choose to live in. Yeah. And then the next one, I would also talk about the transportation. So we have different modes of transportation. For example, we have the autos, which I can put it here for you guys. We have the autos, we have the cabs. So yeah, we have the cabs, we have the local government buses, and then we also have these other buses that transport people to far places. For example, it can be maybe from Pune to Mumbai, or from Pune maybe to Goa, whatever, or whatever destination you're heading to. And then we also have the flights if you're traveling from one city to another. Yeah. And the main major apps for booking the transportation cabs, especially if you're using the cabs, is mainly we use Uber and Ola. Those are the common ones. So one advantage that I would say with booking online than just finding any auto on the way like that is because online you may be able to find it much more cheaper than when you choose to book it. Than when you just find it on the way. Yeah. So also transportation as well depends also with the distance that you're heading to. For example, if I'm going maybe like if I'm traveling from here, for example, to Hinjawadi, if there is traffic, then that might take me almost close to 2 hours to get to Hinjawadi. And if there's no traffic, then that might take me like maybe around 1 hour to get there. So you find that the distance from where I live to where I work is quite far. And of course there, even if you're going to book a cab, obviously it's going to be much more expensive. You'll find that maybe one trip you're paying around 300 rupees, and coming back as well around the same amount, almost between 200 to 300 going to 400, which is quite expensive. However, we also have the local government buses that I had said earlier. I'll just put also a small snapshot of it here. You guys can check it out for yourself. So these are local government buses which also help to transport people to different places. Yeah. So the advantage of these transport means is that it's much more cheaper, and the advantage of it is that even if where you're heading to is much more further, still you'll end up paying very less, you know. So transportation costs usually around 15 rupees to around 30 or 50 rupees max. In most cases it will be up to, if it's a lot, then up to 50 rupees max. You will not pay anything more than that despite the distance. However, the only disadvantage that I hate with these is that the chairs in the bus are very few and they tend to get filled up so fast. So in case if you board it when it's already late, when it's already full, then you will not really have any space to sit and you're forced to stand and, you know, handle those hanging ropes that are there as support. And sometimes you can also find that the bus is so full that you don't even have space to breathe, like you're literally squeezing yourselves with one another. And of course now with this whole pandemic and all, it's not really safe, because it's not really safe being in a bus where there are so many people and you're all squeezed and packed inside there. It's not really safe. So yeah, that's the only disadvantage that I don't like with the government buses, but otherwise in terms of cost, it's much more cheaper and convenient. And then of course for the other buses that I had said, depending also on the city that you're traveling to, you might be going to, for example, places like Ahmedabad or Pune, Mumbai, you know, or whatever other place that you may choose to be going. If you book it much more earlier, then you may find the prices might be more cheaper, probably like from 500 to 1,000. At most you may pay around 2,000. So we have two different types of buses like this. We have the sleeper buses that you can choose to sleep. Yeah, it's basically a bed, so you'll sleep there, or you can choose the seater bus, which is basically for sitting. There are chairs that you sit. So usually when I'm traveling like long distances, I prefer the sleeper bus because I feel the seater is much more tedious than the sleeper one. But when I'm traveling short distances, then obviously I use the seater bus. So yeah, and then also we have the flights as well. Like if you're traveling from one city to another, for example, when I traveled from here to Delhi, that was about 2.5 hours. I booked my ticket much more earlier, so I found the ticket was around 1,200. That was one way, which was so cheap. Yeah, but sometimes if you delay and you book your flight late, then you might find that probably one way you might get it at 2,000, 3,000, or even up to 5,000. So if you book it much more earlier, then you'll find the price much more cheaper. I mean, which applies to whatever destination you're traveling to around the world. If you book your ticket much more cheaper, then you'll get much more cheaper deals. But if you book it late, then obviously the prices will also tend to increase. So yeah, that's it about the transportation. And then the next thing that I'll talk about is the utilities. So here in Pune, or let me just say in general India, because I've noticed this, when I lived also in Ahmedabad, it was the same thing. In Mumbai, it was the same thing. And now also being here in Pune, I feel it's kind of the same thing. So when it comes to like paying your utility bills, most especially the rent, in most cases is going to cover the water, and then you'll have to pay for the electricity and the Wi-Fi separately. Yeah, so I know this one differs because there are some other countries where you'll pay both water and electricity and power separately. But here the advantage that I love is that water, despite how much you use, it is all under the rent. And then the electricity is what is separate together with the Wi-Fi. So electricity also depends on how much you've used in a particular month. That way you'll be charged accordingly. So most times I've not like really used a lot of power, so I find that sometimes during the end of the month I'm paying around 500 to 600 rupees depending. But yeah, just for the sake of power, you can just count a budget of 1,000 if it's a lot, then 2,000, and not anything more than that. And of course also that depends on if you're using the fan or the AC on a daily basis, you know. Also in case if you like leaving the lights on for a longer time. So it basically just depends on the usage. Yeah. And then now the next one will go to groceries. So for the groceries, I can say that food in India in general is not really that expensive, but of course, like I said earlier on, it also depends and varies from city to city. For example, there are some places where you'll find the cost of food is much more expensive than others. But here in Pune, I can say it's a little bit average, and it also depends on where you're buying it from. So for example, if you choose to shop from the markets, like mostly when I'm shopping, I like to buy my vegetables mostly from the markets compared to the supermarkets, because from the markets it's much more cheaper and the quantity is more compared to the supermarkets. But when it comes to other items, other food items, for example like rice, maybe milk, bread, I prefer buying those from the supermarket compared to a shop. Why? Because from the supermarket, first of all, I'm able to get access to a variety of different types that I want. So I'm not really limited by choice. And at the same time, also sometimes they have discounts with them. So like they usually have like this buy one, get one for free, or buy two, get one for free, you know, which are discounts that you'll not easily get in a shop or even at the market. So yeah, so it just depends on the different types of items. Otherwise, like as I said, for the vegetables like potatoes, onions, tomatoes, I prefer buying those from the markets. And then other items like rice, beans, whatever it may be, I prefer buying those from the supermarket. Yeah, so that's about it for the groceries. And then let's cross over to restaurants. Like for example, if you're a person who likes to eat out, so restaurants also depends. It depends also on the kind of restaurant that you're choosing to eat from. Of course, we have those high-star restaurants, which you may end up paying much more compared to those other medium or lower restaurants. For example, if you're going to go to a lower restaurant, then you might even end up paying between 80 rupees to around 500 rupees, depending also on the quantity of the food and, you know, whatever you're ordering. And if you're going to a high-star restaurant, then expect to pay not less than 1,000 sometimes, depending. So there's one restaurant that I used to like going to. It's called Accommodation. That one I usually pay around 2,000 for the meal. It's also kind of high-end, somewhere around Pimple Saudaga. And in that place, like for example, if you pay the 2,000, then that's like unlimited meals. Like you eat until you drop dead. So I don't usually mind paying that 2,000, like if at all I'm really in the mood of eating and I want to go there. So that's like where I usually opt for going to eat. Yeah, and but in general also, when it comes to cooking, obviously I would advise cooking your own meals is much more cheaper than going to the restaurant, because you cannot always be eating from out. For example, before the pandemic, I used to eat a lot from the office, from work, and I used to find that I was spending a lot, especially when it came to lunch, because I was always buying and all. But somehow with this pandemic, it kind of taught me to now start making my own meals, because obviously I'm at home most of the time, so whether I like it or not, I have to cook my own meals. Yeah, so in general, it's much more cheaper for you to actually cook your own meals compared to eating out. Outside can just be like a once in a while thing, you know, but of course it all depends on you. I mean, we all have different preferences. There are some people who don't prefer cooking, they prefer eating from out, and there are others who prefer cooking and other than eating from out. So yeah, it literally depends. But one thing that I noticed with the Indians, they actually love their home cooked food a lot, because even when I used to go to office, you will find almost majority of them used to carry their lunch boxes, you know, with their home cooked meals. So you'll not like, I mean, they still do eat outside as well. They still go to restaurants and all, but they value their home cooked meals more. So yeah. And so the next thing that I'll also talk about is, for example, so sports and leisure. We have the gyms, swimming pools. So it depends if you're a fitness type of person, and I mean also it depends with the location and all. So if you a person who likes to work out, sometimes it depends also on in the area that you're living in. For example, if you're living in a society, yeah, so as you can see, this is what I mean by society, like being in an area where you'll find flats, similar flats, all in one area or under one roof. So if you're living in a place like this, then yeah, most of these kind of areas have got gyms inside. Yeah, so as I showed you, if at all you're living, for example, in this kind of societies, an area with similar buildings, flat buildings, then most of them usually come with their own gyms within the society. So in these cases, you will not really have to pay for the gym. Why? Because that money is already deducted from the rent that you pay on a monthly basis. I remember also when I was in Ahmedabad, for example, I was living in a society which had a gym, and so I didn't have to pay every time I wanted to use the gym, because the gym money was directly deducted from the rent that you pay. So yeah, but there are some other areas that you'll go to that do not have gyms. For example, where I'm staying currently does not have a gym. However, there are some other gyms that are around me. So also depending on the location, for example here, and even in Sangri, the gyms are not really that expensive. Like you'll find maybe the price can be like up to 500 rupees per month. Others will charge you 2,000 or 3,000 rupees for 3 months. And then, yeah, depending. And if you're told you're going to go to the high-end places, then some of them sometimes will charge you maybe up to maybe 10,000 for 6 months, and probably up to 12 or 15,000 for a year. So as I said, that also still depends with the location that you're in. Yeah. And I guess the last thing that I'll talk about is education. So here, for example, the kindergarten for the kids, childcare. So depending on also how you choose to educate your children. For example, if it's more homeschool, then you'll end up paying probably like around 5,000 to 7,000. That again also depends if it's for a month or something like that. And if they are going to school, then if it's these other middle schools, you know, not so international-ish, then probably you'll pay around 10,000 to 12,000. And if at all your children are studying from these big international schools, then obviously the tuition will happen to be much more expensive. You can even find yourself paying up to 1 lakh to 2 lakh, depending. So like I said, it all depends as well with the type of or kind of school that you choose to take your kids to, and also the form of education that you're giving them. Obviously, if it's homeschool, then it will be much more cheaper, and if they're going to schools, also depending on whether it's international or local, you will pay the price accordingly. So yeah, I think that's it, guys, for the cost of living here in Pune. I cannot really think of any other points outside these or apart from these. So in case you guys have any other similar experiences, feel free to put them in the comment section below. I'll definitely would love to hear what you guys have to say about this topic. If you're living in Pune, you can as well let me know if I've missed anything, or if you have your own inputs. They are very welcome. And you can also share with me your other opinions in case you're living in another different city or in another different country. What is the lifestyle there? How is the cost of living wherever you are? So yeah, guys, this is it from me, and thank you so much for staying with me with this video. Please check out my other videos here, and yeah, you can also check out my other videos like what to expect in Ahmedabad and all the other bunch of other different videos that I've made. So yeah, that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.